Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Friday. How is everyone doing? OPEX day. So, there we go, Patrick. Happy Friday to you, too. Good morning, Jacob. Good morning, Jake. Good morning, Dean. Good morning, Anissa. Good morning, Sterling. Hey, Christoph, how are you doing? Good morning, Royal Palms. Yes, 3M. Also, wonderful. Did you notice the pattern? Did anybody notice that now it was a riskier play because it was going into earnings? But did anybody notice the pattern we've talked about? We've talked about that pattern in here before. If not, take a look at the chart and tell me if you see it. There it is. It was a beat. Good, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Lenny, morning. Well, good morning to you too, Rick. American Express was a beat. Schwab was a beat. Schlumberger was a beat. Grand Rising to you, Christoph. Ali was a beat. So, what do we got going in? Well, Sterling keeps putting in some stuff today. Oh, can we look at Target? Sure. Hello, Charles. Good morning, Harold. Good morning, PMG. TFC Truist was a beat. I did not look at that one. Again, thank you. I know you're on vacation, Sterling. Thank you again for putting it in. We had building starts and everything, housing starts coming in higher than previous, a little above consensus. Consumer sentiment is the next big thing this morning, besides what's going on with the administration, whether it's tariffs, whether it's Epstein, whether it's firing Powell. Who here thinks he's going to fire Powell? Finding some reason to fire Powell. All right, I'm not a fan of, you know my stance on the Fed. I don't think we should have a Fed. I think the Fed should be wound down. But I do not want to, if we're going to have a Fed, I want an independent Fed. I do not want it controlled by whatever president and have a crony put in there. Period. Okay? So, and to drop everything to what we have supposedly a great economy, and then we're going to drop it to 1% rates. Okay. Talk about inflation then. But housing will be more affordable. Oh, boy. Good morning, Daniel. He ain't firing Powell. You think he isn't? No way. Will not. We'll see. We'll see. I wouldn't put it past him. I know a lot of people think he would not. Would not put it past him. Maybe we'll get a little Trump tantrum. And, we'll see. Rates at 1%. Strange. First time he said he would fire Powell, market tank. Second time at rallies. Don't think he will fire. Hold on. My clicky finger isn't working. Don't think he'll fire Powell. I think they want a scapegoat if anything goes wrong over the next 8 months. We shall see. Powell's not going to succumb to the pressure. Yep. Oh, I know. I don't want the Fed. I've said that for, I've said that for I've said that since the Greenspan era. And I did read Creature from Jekyll Island. You don't think he will? Think he's going to amend? I don't think Powell. You think Powell will resign then? Anybody here thinks Trump would be held to negotiate with? That's the sleepy puppy in the background. Happy open Friday, everyone. Yes, it is a sleepy puppy. Well, he had to get up at 4 a.m. So, and he's already had his food. And that's Big Roscoe. That's Big Roscoe dog. So he's snoring away. He's had a walk. He had to eat breakfast. He has to deal with option expiration. I mean, he's got to get a nap in before option expiration. So, ahead of today's 2.8 trillion OPEX, retail investors have never traded more. Yep. Again, we have a casino going on. Can it keep going? Yeah. I'm in super cautious mode. I'm in hyper cautious mode. Okay. We had a percent beat buy. Let's just get to that in a second. So far this morning, so you would check the current PE ratio of Palantir. Not to say if they beat earnings, it won't drop, but have you seen where it is prior? Netflix, by the way, was a beat. but not a super strong BP to justify their valuation. That's why it's pulling back a bit. Let's take a look at our groups again. We have energy leading the way up. Consumer cycle. Everything's well, consumer defensive is down 1 basis point. Everything else is positive. Fed watch, still a 95% chance for a pause in 12 days. Fear and greed, we're back to extreme greed. Schiller PE 38.40. We already looked at some earnings. Thank you again for Sterling. Interactive Brokers was also a beat yesterday. Should we trade a Roscoe indicator? We should have a Roscoe indicator. The louder Roscoe snores, the more risk in the market it is. So another all-time high with structurally higher VIX. Complacency kills. Everyone is playing with house money. Well, also people, it's not just playing with house money. If you look at the outstanding leverage and margin debt, it's at extremes. So people aren't just playing with house money, they're playing with borrowed money. And that's always dangerous. Until that happens, though, what's the trend? What is the trend? What is the trend? It's up. We had the percent beat buy that followed through yesterday on the S&P. Coming up next, minor harmonic I was using was a 63.55, which is what was put up here earlier. So we've checked that off. If it does continue, 63.80. Remember, incredibly stretched. We do still have waiting momentum. I'm real interested to see where this weekly closes. If it closes above last week's high, again, it's still a very short-term long for me with a very tight stop. Okay, so that's where that sits right now. Levels for today, I'm not doing much. I got to work on the newsletter and everything else anyways. But on any bigger, first thing, we already have the 4-hour lows about 63.40. We break through there. I'm looking 63.40 to 63.35 on any pullback. On a continued rally, at this point, let me just pull these off since we've already hit them. If it does break out higher, I'm using the Let's Fire Powell spike low. And the key areas higher. This doesn't give me some great harmonics right there. I'm going then, because that's not an official closing bar, I'm going back to the reverse harmonics. This is not, until this bar closes, that's not an official closing bar. I'm going with right here. Those, because this is an official closing bar, I shouldn't even put it on there. This is a fair game reverse harmonic. So it just reinforced that target we already hit, and then the next target is 63.68. So that's the intraday target if we continue to rally into OPEX. I'd be looking, I mean, we could spike up there. I'll be watching 63.50 on a closing basis, and if 63, what am I talking about? 63.50 if we can't get a really sustain above the European session highs. Can you put up the harmonic extensions of Palantir? I think I see confluence in the, sure. Let me just get through a couple else, then I'll get to Target and Palantir. Again, NASDAQ, oops, I forgot to raise this level, sorry about that. Next key is 23,319. Very key support. We're coming in about 23,250. If we broke below that, I'd be looking at 23,222. And then your major support now is back to 23,175 to about 23,200. Again, oh, this is an example. This is a perfect example. Let me go through something else I forgot to do. See, this is why it's sometimes challenging to trade a wedge pattern, because you have a rising target. So we technically triggered the wedge. Pretty much went sideways until it reconnected with the wedge. I just wanted to point that out. Sometimes wedges, because you got a rising target, do not break down. Just wanted to point that out. That was a really good example of one that didn't break down. That's why I also pay attention to the larger daily rotation zone. Other than that, key resistance going into the open is 23.3. If we pop above that, I'm looking at 23.319. Above there, if we had some massive rally, it'd be 23.4. Doubt that, but again, the channeling double that hit the first target. If you look here, because stop lowers. On the 4 hour, it's invalidated, and on the daily, it just missed yesterday, but it's going to be off the table today. So I'm just pulling it off. All right, again, first target catching on the rotation zone. That's why I pay attention to the rotation zone. Other than that, not much to talk about there. If we continue to rally, 44.876 and 45.027 are the key targets. Russell, I was looking to see if we were going to set up a rollover pattern between the 50 and 62.5, which we did not. We just blew through it. And also confirming the percent B buy. Hitting the 87.5. If it does continue higher, remember, trend is still up. If it does continue higher, 23.04 and 23.16 are the next key targets. And then we're looking at 23.37, the first target from the inverse head and shoulders. Key support at this point is coming in at 22.55. VIX, no fear. Again, we kept dropping yesterday, continuing to drop today. Again, sell volatility, buy the stocks. Right now, we hit the first target on the double for the DAX. Little pullback here. But again, trend is still up in the short term. Yields are finally pausing, and we triggered the double top on the 4 hour basis, a little bounce, and now moving on down. So I'm still watching for a little pullback in yields, not a major pullback in yields. Remember, into the daily rotation zone and testing a very key breakout level right now. So would I be shorting yields? No. 30-year, just pausing, trying to drop back below 5 today. Interesting to see where this closes today, though. Again, would not be shorting any yields right now. Crude. We rolled today to September. This is another good teaching moment. Again, it gapped down on the roll. Let me tell you something else. When I have a position that triggers, like we were still technically in the August, but when stuff triggers real close to roll date, I'm going to go with the next future contract, even though it's technically before the roll date. Why? Because it could take a while to play out. So on your September futures, okay, if you just played this in September, which is why I'm teaching this, there's your September contract. All right? Your September contract played out. So even though you're technically before the roll, look when it triggered. It triggered pretty much the day before the roll. What am I going to do? Am I going to go into the August contract and roll to September? No, I'm just going to use the September contract and do my targets and everything off the September contract. Don't be silly that way. Don't say, oh, it hasn't technically rolled yet. I need to use, no. You use, if we're talking 2 weeks out, no, I'm going to still use the August contract. But if we're talking within a couple, 3 days, even stretching possibly to a week, I'm using the new contract we're going to roll to. All right, just wanted to point that out. So, that's that. All right. I just know if we bounce up in this, the September contract's already hit the targets. Natty gas, not much to talk about there. Keeping a close eye on this. We're approaching that 50% harmonic with cycles getting to the top. Gold. I was looking at this earlier because we broke above yesterday's high at the bottom of the channel and it held the 50 yesterday, and this is a potential percent beat buy, so I'm watching for, in order for it to be officially triggered, it's intraday triggered, but in order to hold it, it needs to close above yesterday's high. Holding the channel, holding the 50. The official stop would be below yesterday's low. All right, silver, we have a little rotation back up. Watching now in silver. Let me know if that made sense with what I was talking about in crude also. Let me know if that made sense to everyone. Silver with the rotation back up. I needed to follow through with the close. This is a secondary reaction. I need to follow through above 38.86 on any longs. Dollar index. We're finally getting. This would have been, besides this really, the J. Powell firing spike down, would have been a potential double top. I'm looking for a continued pullback with cycles at the top rolling over. I'm looking for a pullback on this and then new long setups. This is not something I'd be shorting, though. Euro looking again for the bounce. This is a %B buy setup. It's got to close above yesterday's high, and this would be for a very quick bounce play only. My targets would be between 116.93 to 117.72. Yields in Japan still pulling back a bit. Going to be watching for another rotation up in that, but nothing yet. The yen still looking, even if we pull back, still looking for us to reconnect with that 149.70 area. Nothing there to talk about. The spiders, next target 629.12 to the upside. Yesterday hit the minor harmonic, and then on a continued rally 630.58. I'm looking at 629.12 today if we rally into the open. Other than that, just paying attention to the 1 hour rotation zone for any pullbacks. The Qs hitting the next, pretty much closing just below the next harmonic after spiking through it. At this point, if you're going to do a pausing bar, if you're looking for something before 560, 613, the next key area to do would be this. And these aren't the best harmonics, but this is what I'd be using, 582, 562.82, then 564.83. And that would be to raise stops. What else? I know there's some other stuff. Bitcoin just so far sideways correction with 8 coming, pushing the price. We have a couple other things. Target. Good old Target. Looking to form a week. This is starting to form a weekly base. I'm now watching, again, it's on the upper end of key resistance and the rotation zone. I'm now watching for any minor pullback in Target. You can see here, we're not quite to that 87.5. We are trying to flatten out. It cannot get through key resistance. I'm still watching for a bottoming pattern in here. Again, this is a very key support level in front of the 87.5. Here's the support zone I've been looking at. All right. So I'm watching to make sure this holds on any pullback again. Cycles at the top on the weekly basis, still drifting down the daily basis, but this is nothing I'd chase in the short term. Okay, now if it starts breaking above 106, I'm really going to sit up and take notice. Palantir, again, P to E, 659, even if they have a great beat. I mean, 659 is absurd. If we look at the longer term, this is a harmonic area, a key harmonic area up here. I would definitely be raising stops aggressively at this point. Here's your monthly. I mean, here's your monthly. So, you can, I just don't like to sell in the strength. I mean, yeah, you can take a little off between here and, there's a little minor cluster here. You might want to wind some. But then the rest, I like to trail out in this. Definitely trail out. That's the way. I'm not trying to call it top because could it keep going? Yeah. Is it insanely overbought and insanely overvalued? Yeah. just be prepared that when it does pull back, that's why, you know, you're only, I mean, weekly rotation zone. Could it easily still pull back to 136.50 and just catch on the weekly rotation zone? Yeah. By the way, breadth is starting to get thin again. Oh, you vacation on Jekyll Island. All right, you rolled it after hours? All right, Jake. I was just saying what I do. Because the liquidity was almost there. Not to short every negative setup, but to use pullbacks to get in long. This overall macro trend determines when the time is right to short. And that's why I pay attention to the rotation zones. What else do we have? Tesla, nothing to talk about. Nvidia, another thing insanely overstretched. Keeps on climbing. Look at this. Look at this on the monthly. Look at that. At some point, we're going to get the vertical down. Don't know when that is. So at this point, trail, next key target. Again, getting into exhaustion mode. Cycles at the top, insanely overbought, but there's no short trigger yet. There is no short trigger. So 178.05. Yeah, today is OPEX. What else? Was there any other stocks I missed? I don't think so. Why is gold breaking out today? I have not done the analysis on if Friday's a breakout day for gold or not. I just look at the setups. I've actually not done that. What days favor breakouts for gold? It wouldn't have changed. Why is it going up today? Because it's going up. And the only thing I had was the percent B buy setup that's got to follow through into the close. If it doesn't follow through, it's not a hold. And it's still in consolidation and congestion, flagging upwards. As I said, I'm still looking for long setups unless we close back below the 50. Short-term long setups. Long-term, I'm still looking for, I'm still trailing unless we trigger this double. That's about it. There's not much to talk about. It's a Friday in July. The market's been grinding higher. Would not be shorting this at all. Would trailing a percent B buy at this point. That's where I would be at, trailing a percent B buy. But again, we have cycles at the top of the weekly. I can't get overly negative, at least even neutral mode until we close below the daily rotation zone, which we haven't done since it crossed in April. Okay, so aggressive trailing, from my perspective, would not be shortened unless you're trying to do something really nimble. I could see something coming out this weekend. It's going to be interesting. I could see waking up on, or not waking up on Sunday, like looking at Sunday night futures open and having an interesting gap down because something happens. But we'll see. We shall see. What is ticker you like instead of gold? PHYS. Sprott Physical Gold Trust. That's the one I like. It's fully backed. Okay, so I like the Sprott Physical Gold Trust. So that's what I like. And for silver, I like PSLV. That's the Sprott Silver. So those are the two I like for that. Does the bottoming candle on a rotation zone? No, it does not have to be a red candle. No, it does not. That's a good question, Jake. OD Green would like another market vertical down stretch. Shorting is for losers. Wait for buy setups only. Well, there are times to more aggressively short the market. I do not recommend that for a lot of people, but you know what? You were waiting for a long time for buy setups. Go after like the .com, the '08 pullbacks. Now, do I recommend shorting individual stocks? Not unless they're insane, like vertical up patterns. Again, I think most people should. Shorting futures is fine because it's easy to get out. You're welcome, Royal Palms. You went to Jekyll Island, had nice Christmas decorations. Boy, I never associated Jekyll Island with Christmas decorations. So, that's where we sit. That's about it. Don't do stupid today. Please, on a Friday in July with OPEX, just don't force anything. Do not force anything. These are great days to just take it easy. And if you want to, work on something else, if there's a great setup, don't force things, especially after Europe closes. With that, I shall see everybody next week, Monday. There's not much coming out Monday. So we'll see what happens. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.